when we learn things, it's almost like, oh, because we think that someone thought that's a good idea and it might have helped them. So they go off and say, okay, I'll teach you stress management. This is a step-by-step process of how you can sort of relieve stress. And we all get like, yeah, I really want to learn more about this. But when you say like, we want to actually, we could do that. But it could be like you could keep doing that, but it's almost like hard work. Every time something else comes up, you'll have to do more of that. What if you had to do less, but all you need to do is understand the real source of stress? Would it be interesting? Would it be interesting for you? And I'm sure everyone would like to say would say something like, "Yeah, I want to learn that."
Yeah, once they see that that's a possibility, the only thing is that most people haven't even considered that that might be possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as soon as they see for themselves, well, actually, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And then we are so caught up in, oh, but hang on a minute, I have got this problem. This is a very, very big problem. This is a complex problem. What you're offering is something too simplistic. It can't work like that. It surely can't work like that. And that could get in the way of people even being interested in the first place.
That's right. It often does initially for people, particularly if people have already been through a lot of self-help or psychological techniques and so on. We get accustomed to thinking that way. Whenever we have a problem, we got to work on it. And the bigger the problem, the more we have to work on it, or the longer we've had it, the more we have to work on it. And this what we're sharing with people, it flies in the face of that. And it helps them to see that actually, no, the way that we function is quite simple. It really is quite simple. The manifestations are complex, but behind the scenes, it's pretty much the same thing that's going on for everybody. We're living in a thought-created experience, which we experience as a reality through our senses. And as soon as we let thought go, it gets replaced by different thinking, which means our feeling changes by itself. And just understanding that's the experience that we're living in. We're not being bombarded by stress factors from the outside. It can look like we are, but actually we never are. That's very reassuring for people. And once people get a taste of it, they get excited because they start to say, well, if it's true here, maybe it's true there as well. What about this other thing that I've been seemingly grappling with for a long time? Suddenly they start to see, well, that's up for grabs as well.
Yeah. And I'm sure you have heard people say, well, I came to you because of this problem, but interestingly, I haven't done any work on the other area, and it seems to be getting better without even trying. How cool is that?
All the time, yeah. And it's one of the best things about our work is the unexpected beneficial side effects, which can take, many, many forms. I've had people who've, they just dropped some, like a smoking habit or something, just fell away. They weren't even trying to quit,
Yeah.
But they no longer felt the need to smoke because they weren't feeling so stressed, and they associated smoking with when they felt tense or stressed. So as soon as that feeling changes, the behavior that was attached to it falls away too. Yeah. So many examples of this that we see.
Yeah. Ian, one of the things that people ask is, show us the evidence base. And I don't want to go deep into it, but I know that you are you're doing some work with Innate Health Center, taking this understanding to schools. And I don't know whether you are sort of doing it as a research project or not, but tell us something about it and some of the outcomes from the project you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, we finished the second kind of pilot program recently. And I'm now talking with another school about something different. But one of the things that we did do was a kind of pre and post survey for the children to fill out. And also the teachers, I think, participated in that, so that we could have some kind of measure, that is this helpful, really? Because it's a great, we can see for ourselves that it's helpful. You and I wouldn't be working in this field and sharing this understanding if we didn't know it was helpful. But as you say, not everybody has had the experience of it yet. So it will help them as a stepping stone if we can actually show them, look, this understanding has been helpful in this setting. Now, there is research that's already been done with youths both in the particularly in the US, they've done research in school system and also in the correctional system. You know, so the children who were starting to commit criminal acts and this kind of thing, and you know, the more severe end of behavioral disturbance. And this understanding has proven to be spectacularly helpful for those. But the kind of things that we saw in the school, I haven't seen the actual before and after researchers yet because it's only just finished. But what we saw from working with those children was, first of all, the children started to display what I would just call the characteristics of well-being, and I felt on a more consistent basis. You know, you start to see that showing up across the board. Now, how that shows up is going to vary because, for example, you might have one child who's, let's say, very boisterous, or it maybe has developed a behavior of attention seeking. So they're always, you know, dominating the proceedings and drawing attention to themselves and so on. You might have another child in the same group who's, let's say, labeled as the quiet one. You know, the one who never shares anything. You know, people maybe think that they're very shy or self-conscious and so on. So the manifestation of starting to understand how their experience is created and connecting to their well-being is going to show up quite differently in those two examples. You know, the one who's, let's say, overly boisterous and attention-seeking starts to see, actually, I don't need to do that. You know, it doesn't actually give me something that I need. Once I start to see that I'm okay already, I don't need that attention in order to feel okay, they start to settle down. That behavior starts to settle down and become less evident. Whereas another child who's maybe thought of themselves as not having anything useful to say, or nobody listens to me, they start to see that actually maybe that's not true. Maybe that was just made up in my own thinking, you know, and I've been believing that. And actually, what would happen if I didn't believe that? Well, suddenly that child's got something to say. And, you know, and initially people are surprised. And that's one of the things that we saw in the classroom, was that some of the quieter kids would come out with things and everybody's like, whoa, you know, they hadn't expected it because they hadn't heard that kind of thing before. And to us, it was, you know, it's just beautiful to see this, that when our colleague George Bransky has an expression, all boats rise with the tide. You know, when well-being starts to increase, innate well-being starts to be more evident, the way that it shows up is going to vary according to the needs of the individual. So there isn't, and this is the tricky thing with research, there isn't necessarily an outcome that we can predict and say, this is going to happen for your child. What we can say is that they're going to move in the direction of what I would just call psychological and emotional well-being. They're going to move more in that direction. How that shows up individually is going to vary. But that's the direction. We can be confident about that. So in some cases, it's going to be more confidence. In other cases, it's going to be less anxiety. In other cases, it's going to be less bothered by others' opinions, you know, peer pressure and this kind of thing. That can be a big deal for these youngsters. The other thing that we started to see in the classroom was that the kind of the mutual respect and the listening, the quality of listening amongst the children, that started to improve. You know, they start to learn to listen to each other better. And thereby have more respect for each other. Because what we're helping them to see is that we all live in a kind of thought-created separate reality. And we're all doing what we do that makes sense to us, given the thinking that we have at the time. Once you start to see that that's not only true for you, but it's true for everyone else, it's really helpful, because someone else behaving in a kind of what looks to you like an odd way, well, you can explain it now, you can understand it. You say, well, they're only behaving that way because that's the thinking that they're in. If I was thinking the same as they are, I'd be doing exactly what they're doing. But it kind of takes the charge. It depersonalizes some of the things, some of the behaviors that feel very personal. Yeah. They start to get depersonalized. So what happens then is that they find ways to resolve conflicts much easier. They just don't take things as personally as they used to do, and they start to have more understanding for each other. And for their peers, or even for their teachers.
You know, we hear a lot about stigma and discrimination against particular behaviors, particular, you know, how people appear or people's diagnosis. And I was just fascinated by what you just said, because there's something about how we discriminate and we stigmatize people who do not appear like us, who appear very odd. But there's also another factor going on. It's a self-stigmatization. Oh, but I have got depression, I have got ADHD, so da 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 da. And I'm coming back to this because I am a mental health professional, and I have seen, I know that there's a lot out there about ending stigma, ending discrimination, and there are a lot of campaigns going on about that, which is a good thing. But this sounds to me like once people really understand why people are different on the outside, but that just because they're different on the outside doesn't mean they're different on the inside too, and how we are all the same. It's just that we have our own creation. We use the same powers. We all have access to thought. We all think, and but how it comes out is different based on our based on different separate realities. So once people get this, and then they can have very honest conversations about what's going on for them, but they know that sort of not to be tied down to a certain set of mannerisms or behavior about or about who they are or who their friends are. Would it not be wonderful if everyone said, "Hey, you are just like me. You might be going through a very rough phase at the moment, but we are all the same," and have those ongoing conversations about well-being, not about well-being as in absence of illness, but well-being about as a innate sort of something innate within us or available to us. So that would be a sort of just think about that as a possibility for future generations, and it'll be wonderful if people like you and you and me and others, we all join hands and say, "Hey, look, there is something else that you really need to look at, something that's not very obvious, something that's not out there in the sort of out there in the open and in the traditional system, so to speak." But more and more people wake up and they say, "Actually, I see something deep here, something more profound." Yes, there is this diagnosis, and yes, people might need to take medication. Some people might need to be on medication for longer periods than others. And by no means are we saying that stop your medication and just look at this way. I think it could be very sort of foolish to say something like this, especially as a psychiatrist. I would say, yeah, do what it takes to. And sort of go to a health professional, get it checked out, sort of look at the plan and so on. But alongside that, even if you need to take medication or go for the sort of anything else that's on offer, but also it's really going to help when people have a deeper understanding of why is it that they are having a certain experience, and why is it that all the tools and techniques they have been taught, that they have tried and sort of been taught, work sometimes, not all the times, and how even if they don't do all those tools and techniques, they're still okay at a deeper level, and to trust that.
That's it. Yeah, no, that's lovely. And I love the point that you made, Rani, about how it's so easy for us to get focused on the differences because that's what's visible, and in a way, that's what catches our attention. This particularly for behavior is different to what we consider to be the norm. Of course, it catches our attention, and you could say it's a very human thing that would happen. But as soon as we start to understand and see for ourselves that behind that behavior, as you said, we're using exactly the same system, we're using the same apparatus, for want of a better term, to create that experience. That understanding brings compassion, as well as, it brings compassion. And I've seen this amongst children, is that they start to have different eyes for each other, and a lot of the judgment starts to fall away. It's the judgment that separates us. That we look at the difference, and then we start to judge and compare, and maybe criticize. And as you say, we do it to ourselves as well as to the other. So it's a really nice thing when people start to understand this, that we are underneath the surface, we are exactly the same. We're all doing the best we can with the understanding that we have. And that, to me, that's why it's an education. This is not a new kind of therapy. It's an education in the true sense of the word, which that word, the Latin origin, has to do with drawing something out, which is already there. And to me, that's what this is. We're helping people to understand and see something for themselves, which was already true. We're not telling them that you have to believe this. It's not a new philosophy that anyone has to believe in. We're just saying, look, there's a way that your psychological and emotional experience functions that you probably didn't learn at school. You and I didn't learn it at school, right? Because it's relatively new. It's been around a few decades, but not that many people have known about it as yet. It's only just starting to become more widely known. In whatever time duration it takes, one day it will be universal. Everybody will know it, and we'll look back and wonder why we were getting ourselves in such a tiz, But in the meantime, the best we can do is to help to share it and to help people see for themselves. Look, there's something here which is, once you see it for yourself, it's going to be super helpful. And I think the point about techniques that you made is valid. Is my experience was the technique would work some of the time, but it wasn't consistent. Or it would work for one person with a certain issue, but then they'd have something else going on. They'd try it again and it wouldn't work. It was hit and miss. It wasn't sustainable. And that's the difference for me. That's why I let go of the techniques that I used to practice to help people. And now I prefer just to help them understand, just to have the understanding. Because what I've seen is that it's much more sustainable for them. Once they know where to look, they don't need me, to keep reminding them, and they don't even need to have to remember to do something. They'll start to just see for themselves. Whenever they get lost, they'll kind of know what's going on. And that knowing somehow insulates us, it protects us, and it helps us to come back. Because we are going to get lost, we're going to get fooled, we're going to get caught in the human experience. It happens. It still looks to me like my kids are winding me up sometimes. And then unfortunately I can remember, oh, that's not what's going on. They're just doing what they're doing, what makes sense to them given their thinking. What I make of that, how I feel about that, that's coming from my thinking. It's not coming from them. And as soon as I see that, okay, I can settle down. Now I can respond in a way that's helpful rather than just get into a fight with them or get reactive.
Beautiful. So I'm conscious of time. We need to end this conversation soon, but it's so exciting, isn't it? Ian, if people wanted to find out more, where should they look, or what are your sort of pointers to people who are interested in the conversation we just had?
Well, you and I have an event coming up, Rani. We should point them there.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. Yeah.
Which is going to be in Exeter on the 10th of June, I think. I think that's right, which I'm really looking forward to. So, and that we're going to do a day together, which is specifically for adults who are looking to help the children or to understand the children that are in their life, whether that's, your own children as a parent or nephews, nieces, or if you're involved in education, anyone who's involved in children's lives, we'd like to invite those people to come along and learn from this understanding, just a way that they can be in relation to those kids, which is going to be helpful for both. That's what I'd like to emphasize. It's not just helpful for the children, it's helpful for the parents and the caretakers of the children as well. So we have that coming up. I've got a website, theinsightspace.com, which is where I post my events and so forth. We will have other events, some of which will be tailored for parents and or for children. And feel free to get in touch if you've got any questions.